Both hands on that control. When I say now, you open it all the way.
When that gate opens, the water goes down the low channel first. Fast. Deep. You know what's down there.
The town. Below the town. The low ground. Spillway Road.
Your house is on Spillway Road, Cole.
You open this gate to save 2,000 people, and your own house goes under first.
That's the trade. And the window to make it is closing while you stand there.
The sheriff did not move. The number on the board climbed higher into the red. Somewhere under the floor, under the rain, under all of it, the concrete groaned, low and long, like something enormous, turning over in its sleep for the last time. Who the gray man was, and how a drifter thrown out of town came to be the only one who could save it, and why the sheriff who threw him out was now being asked to drown his own house on that man's word, is a story that started 3 hours earlier on a rain-soaked county road. 3 hours earlier, it had started with a bucket of water. Silas Brandt was standing under the awning of the hardware store on Main Street, out of the rain, bothering no one, when Weller Fisk came out of the resort office with a mop bucket in his hand, the gray water he had used to wash the resort's front steps, and crossed the road and threw it across the sidewalk at Silas's boots, soaking him to the knees. "Steps are for paying guests," Fisk said pleasantly. "Not for men who smell like a wet dog. Move along before you cost me a booking." A woman with a phone lifted it, the way people do now, and took a picture of the drifter standing there dripping gray mop water while a man in a good coat walked back to his resort. Silas did not wipe it off. He did not argue. He only bent and set the rolling bucket upright on the curb so it would not wash away, because that was the kind of small, decent thing his hands still did without asking him. 20 minutes later, the patrol truck came, because Fisk had called the station to say a vagrant was frightening the tourists. "Don't come back. Season's starting, and you don't fit the postcard." Sheriff Cole Redding said it without heat, the way a man reads a weather report, and he kept both hands on the wheel of the patrol truck as it climbed the county road in the worst rain the valley had seen in 30 years. The wipers could not keep up. The headlights caught silver sheets of it coming down sideways. The truck slowed for a corner where a white fence ran along a dark yard, and for half a second, Cole eased off the gas as they passed it, the way a man does at his own street without thinking. And then the fence was behind them, and he sped back up and said nothing about it. The man in the passenger seat did not answer. He had his head turned toward the window, his ear almost against the glass, and he was listening to something that was not the rain. "You hearing me?" the sheriff said. "I said don't come back." "I heard you." The man kept his ear to the glass. "You hear that?" "I hear a hell of a storm." "That's not the storm. Thunder stops. Thunder rolls and quits and rolls again." He closed his eyes. "That sound's been going since we passed the spillway. 6 miles. It hasn't stopped once, and it's getting lower. Concrete doesn't groan like that unless it's holding more than it was built to hold." Sheriff Cole Redding glanced at him, at the soaked canvas coat and the 3 days of gray stubble and the duffel bag between his boots, and decided the man was talking the way drifters talk, to fill the air. "You're a plumbing repair fella," Cole said. "You told the diner you fix pipes. Now you're a dam engineer." "I told the diner I fix things." The man opened his eyes and looked straight ahead into the rain. "There's a difference, and tonight it's going to matter more than anything else in this valley. Everybody's a somebody who used to be something. I've hauled 100 drifters to this line. Everyone used to be a doctor or a soldier or a millionaire before the luck ran out." Cole kept his eyes on the road. "You know what none of them ever were? Right about anything. Then I'll be the first." The man turned back to the glass. "Stop the truck at the dam. 1 minute. If I'm wrong, you've lost 60 seconds and you can throw me across that line yourself. If I'm right, you've saved a town. That's a good trade for 1 minute, Sheriff." "I'm not stopping at the dam." "Then slow down when you pass it. Roll your window down. And for 1 second, stop listening to me and listen to it. A dam tells you before it breaks. It talks for hours, in a language most people never learn. The only thing that decides who lives is whether somebody who speaks it is still willing to listen." The truck reached this county line, a green sign pocked with rust, and Cole Redding pulled onto the shoulder and put it in park and leaned across to open the passenger door from the inside, the way you hurry a thing along. 2,000 people down there, the man said, not moving yet. Sleeping under that dam. Put me out on this line. That's your right. It's your county. But before you drive back down, stop at the dam. Get out. Listen for 1 minute. Get out, mister. The man got out. He stood in the rain at the county line with his duffel over his shoulder, and Cole Redding pulled the door shut and turned the truck around and drove back down toward the lake, toward the town, toward the dam. He did not stop at the dam. That was the first mistake of the night, and it was not the last, and it was not even his. An hour before the sheriff's truck ever climbed that road, in a diner on the edge of Cedar Hollow, a 9-year-old named Rowan had watched the drifter's coat fall open when he reached for his coffee, and something small and laminated had slipped out of an inside pocket and landed on the floor under the counter. Rowan picked it up. It was an identification card, worn soft at the corners. The photograph faded, but the words were still readable, and Rowan read them the way 9-year-olds read things, out loud and without discretion. State Dam Safety Inspector, Rowan read. Silas Brandt. The kid looked up. Is that you? Are you a dam inspector? The man took the card back, gently, and put it away. I was. What's a dam inspector do? Listens, mostly. Silas turned his coffee cup in his hands. A dam can't talk the way you and I do, but it makes sounds, and if you learn them, you can tell when it's happy and when it's scared. My whole job was listening to something that couldn't say the words. That's a weird job. It was a good job. Silas said it quietly. It was the best job I ever had. My mom says the dam's the reason we have a town at all. She says the lake wouldn't be a lake without it. Rowan considered this. Are you here to look at it? No, Silas Brandt said. I'm just passing through. Rowan's mother, Nell, came over and gave the drifter the careful look that mothers give strange men near their children, and then she softened it, because there was nothing in this one to be afraid of, only something worn all the way down. He bothering you, Rowan? He listens to dams for a job. Does he? Nell looked at Silas again, differently now. We're the little blue house below the spillway, she said, for no reason she could have named. If you're still around tomorrow, there's work. My gutters are shot, and my ex took the ladder. I won't be around tomorrow, Silas said, but thank you. He stood and put money on the counter, and then he stopped and looked at the boy, and something in the storm outside made him say one more thing. Keep him up high tonight. Rain like this, the low ground fills first. If the yard starts taking water, you don't wait to see how bad. You go up. Promise me that. It's just a storm, mister. Probably. Silas picked up his duffel. Promise me anyway. Nell looked at him a moment, and something in his face made her nod. All right, high ground. I promise. He had meant it as nothing, a habit, the kind of thing a man in his old trade said the way other men said, drive safe. He would remember saying it, later, when it stopped being nothing. Now he stood at the county line, and the truck was gone, and he faced the choice that the whole rest of the night would come from. He could walk north. The road north went up out of the valley, away from the water, away from the town that had put him out, and by morning he would be 2 counties over, and none of it would be his problem, the way none of it had been his problem for 6 years. He was good at walking north. He had done it in a dozen towns, every time the water in some new place started making a sound he recognized. Or he could walk back down, toward the exact sound he had prayed, every night in every town, that he would never have to hear again, back into the county that had thrown him out, toward a man who would arrest him the moment he understood who he was, toward a wall that carried his own signature like a wound. He thought about a boy in a diner who had read his old title off a card and asked, without any cruelty in it, "Are you a dam inspector?" Was. He had said was. And standing at the county line, in the worst rain in 30 years, Silas Brandt understood that the whole difference between the man he had been and the man he wanted to die, as was the difference between was and am. Then he turned his back on the road north, and he started walking down toward the lake, and his hands were shaking, and it was not from the cold. The dam control room sat at the north abutment, a squat concrete building with one lit window, and inside it, a young engineer named Del Pruitt was having the worst shift of his short career and did not yet understand how much worse it was about to get. The board had 3 amber lights on it that he had never seen amber before. The piezometers, the instruments that measured water pressure inside the dam body, were reading high. Not catastrophic. High. He had called his supervisor 40 minutes ago, and his supervisor, at his daughter's wedding 2 hours away, had said, "Watch it. Call me if it hits the red line. And do not, under any circumstances, call the county and start a panic on the biggest tourist weekend of the year. So Dell watched it, and it climbed. And he was 29 years old and alone in a concrete room with the lake pushing on the other side of the wall. And when the door opened behind him, he nearly came out of his chair. "You can't be in here," Dell said. "This is a restricted. Your number 3 piezometer, just past your number 1, Silas said, water running off his coat onto the floor. Which means the pressure isn't spread across the dam anymore. It's collecting. In one spot. About a third of the way up from the toe. On the wet side, roughly under the old construction joint. Am I right?" Dell stared at him. Then he looked at the board. Number 3 had in fact just passed number 1. "Who are you?" Dell said. "Ask me the next reading first. The tow drain, the pipe at the bottom that's supposed to run clear. Go look at it on your camera feed and tell me what color the water is." Dell pulled up the camera. The tow drain, which should have run clear, was running the color of coffee with milk in it. "It's brown," Dell said quietly. "Now check your seepage weir, downstream side, the little notch that measures how much water's coming through the ground under the dam. Tell me it's up." Dell checked. "It's up. It's way up." "How much?" "Triple what the log says is normal, because it's not seeping anymore. It's finding a path." Silas came to the board and looked at the amber lights the way a doctor looks at a chart he already knows the ending of. 3 readings, son. Pressure collecting in one spot, drain running brown, seepage tripled. Any one of those is a bad night. All 3 at once, in the same hour, is a dam coming apart from the inside. How long have those lights been amber? 40 minutes. Then we've got about 3 hours. Maybe less, in this rain. And your supervisor told you to wait for the red line, didn't he? Silas looked at him. "By the time it hits the red line, son, the answer won't be a phone call. It'll be a flood." "I asked who you are," Dell said. Silas took the laminated card out of his coat and set it on the board next to the amber lights, and Dell Pruitt picked it up and read it, and then he read it again, the way you read a thing when the first read doesn't fit in your head. "Silas Brandt." Dell looked up. "State Dam Safety. You're the inspector who signed the certification on this dam. Your name's on the wall. It's on the plaque by the door." His voice changed. "It's on the report that says this dam is safe." "I know where my name is," Silas said. "Show me the report, the certification. It should be framed. Fisk liked to frame things." Dell took it off the wall. The framed certification of structural adequacy, 6 years old, and Silas held it under the light and looked at his own signature at the bottom, and something moved across his face that Dell would not understand until later, a grief with a floor of shame under it. "There it is," Silas said softly. 6 years I've been trying to outrun that signature, and here it is waiting for me, right where I left it. "You certified this dam. You said it was safe." "I said it was safe." Silas set the frame down, face up on the board. "That was a lie, Dell. I knew it was a lie the day I signed it. And in about 3 hours, that lie is going to try to kill everyone downstream of this wall. And I am the only man in this valley who can hear it coming, because I am the one who taught it to stay quiet." The rain came down on the roof of the control room like gravel poured from the sky, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. And out in the dark, the dam kept talking, lower now, and only one of them could hear what it said. "Here is what happened 6 years ago," and Silas Brandt told it to Dell Pruitt in that control room in the fewest words he could, because there was not time for more, and because there had never been enough words to make it sit right. He had been the state inspector for the whole northern district. He came to Cedar Hollow to sign off on a new dam that a developer named Weller Fisk had built to make a lake, because a lake meant a resort, and a resort meant a town, and the whole future of Cedar Hollow was poured into that concrete. And Silas had found a flaw. A construction joint, where one pour of concrete met the next, that had not been keyed and sealed the way the drawings called for. Water would find it. Water always finds the lazy joint. He wrote it up, wrote that the dam was not adequate, that the joint had to be redone, that until it was, the lake could not be filled. Weller Fisk came to see him. Fisk did not shout. Fisk sat down across a table and explained, in a calm and reasonable voice, exactly what he would do. "I read your report, Mr. Brandt. It's very thorough. It's also going to bankrupt this town before it's born." Fisk had folded his hands. "So let's talk about what happens if you don't change it. First, I sue you. Personally. For every $1 this delay costs me, and it's going to be a large number, a number with a house in it and a retirement in it. Second, I make some calls. I know people at the state. By the time I'm done, Silas Brandt is the inspector who fails good projects out of spite. Unreliable, difficult. Nobody hires difficult. The joint is defective, Silas had said. Water will find it. Maybe. In 20 years? In 50. Fisk had smiled. You have a daughter starting college in the fall, don't you? And a wife? And a mortgage on Ash Street. He said it gently, the way you'd mention the weather. I'm not threatening your family, Mr. Brandt. I would never. I'm just noting that a man with that much to protect should think very carefully about which report he signs. That's all. Think about your people. And Silas Brandt, who was afraid, who could see his daughter's tuition and his wife's face and the whole fragile shape of his life sitting on that table between them, signed the certification that said the dam was adequate. Fisk filled the lake. And then, 6 months later, when the paperwork was done and Silas was no longer useful and had become instead a loose thread, Fisk made a call to the state anyway and reported that Brandt had certified a dam with a known joint defect, which was true, and Silas lost his license and his career, and, in the long grinding year that followed, his marriage. He took it all anyway, Silas told Dell. Everything I signed the lie to protect. He took it anyway because that was always going to be the deal. I just didn't read the fine print. He looked at the certification on the board. I signed away the only thing I was ever good at to a man who was going to ruin me regardless. And I have spent 6 years listening to water in every town I passed through, waiting for the night I'd have to answer for it. This is the night. I am not here to get even with anybody. I am here to finish reading the sentence I stopped in the middle of 6 years ago. Del Pruitt was quiet for a moment. Then he did the thing that decided the rest of the night. He picked up the phone. I'm calling the sheriff, Del said. And I don't care what my supervisor said. If you're right, people have to move. And the only man who can order an evacuation in this county is the sheriff. He put me out at the county line an hour ago, Silas said. Then he's going to be real surprised to hear your voice. Del dialed. Because I'm going to tell him the inspector who signed this dam says it's failing. And I need him to believe you. And God help me, I do believe you. And I met you 4 minutes ago. Why? Silas said. Why do you believe me? Del held the phone to his ear, listening to it ring. Because a man running a con would have walked north, he said. You had a road out of here, mister. I've been watching you not take it since you came through that door. Sheriff Cole Redding came back up the county road for the second time that night, and this time he did stop at the dam, because the young engineer on the phone had said a sentence that no sheriff can ignore, which was, the water is coming, and I can prove it. He came into the control room, shaking rain off his hat, and stopped short when he saw the drifter standing at the board. You, Cole said. Me. Silas did not move. Sheriff, I need you to look at 3 things, and then I need you to make a decision that is going to be the hardest one you ever make. And I need you to make it in the next 90 minutes, because that's what we have. Will you look? Give me one reason I should listen to a man I put out of my county an hour ago. Because I'm the man who signed the paper that says this dam is safe, Silas said. And I'm standing here in the rain telling you I lied. A man doesn't drive back into a county that threw him out to tell you he's a liar unless it's true. There's no con in it. There's no money in it. There's nothing in it for me but a jail cell and a town that hates me. So ask yourself why I'm still here, and then look at the board. Cole looked at him a long moment. You could be crazy. I could be. Crazy men and honest men look the same from the outside at 2 in the morning. Silas gestured at the panel. So don't take my word. Take the dams. Look. And Silas Brandt walked Cole Redding through it, the way he had walked Dell through it, except now it was not to prove himself. It was to build in a lawman the certainty he would need to do a terrible thing. He showed him the amber lights. He showed him the tow drain running brown. He took him to the window. Now stop talking, Silas said, and listen, not to the rain, under the rain. There's a sound under the rain. Cole listened, and his face changed, slowly, as he heard, for the first time, the low groan of the wall under the storm. That sound, Cole said slowly. That's the dam telling you the truth, Silas said, which is more than the man who built it ever did. A dam tells you before it breaks. It talks for hours, and somebody who speaks its language just has to be willing to listen. I stopped listening for 6 years. I'm listening now, and I'm telling you what it's saying. The door opened again, and Weller Fisk came in out of the rain in a good coat, and behind the calm of his face was something Silas recognized from 6 years ago, the calm of a man who is used to rooms rearranging themselves around what he wants. Cole, Fisk said, not even looking at Silas. I got a call that my night engineer is having a panic attack and phoning the sheriff. On this weekend. Do you have any idea what an evacuation does to this town? Every room booked solid, every restaurant, every charter boat. It's the whole year's money in one weekend, and this young man wants to throw it into the street over 3 amber lights and a muddy drain pipe. Weller, the drain's running brown. Drains run brown in a storm, Cole. It's a storm. The biggest storm in 30 years. Of course, the instruments are jumpy. Fisk's voice was warm, reasonable. The voice of a man explaining the obvious to frightened children. You want to know what I think? I think everybody in this room needs to take a breath. Nobody's dam is breaking tonight. You call an evacuation, and tomorrow the dam is fine. And you've cost this town everything, and you've done it on the say-so of. Now he looked at Silas. Now he saw him, and for just a second, the calm slipped. You, Fisk said. Hello, Weller. The two men looked at each other across 6 years, and Cole Redding watched them look and understood, in the way a good lawman understands a room, that these two had a history, and that it was the center of everything. You know this man? Cole said. I know him, Silas said, before Fisk could answer. Better question, Sheriff. Ask him if he knows me. Ask him where we met. That's enough, Fisk said. We met right here, 6 years ago. Silas did not look away from Fisk. He's the man who sat across a table from me and named my wife and my daughter out loud, so I'd understand exactly what he'd take from me if I didn't sign his damn safe. And I signed. God help me, I signed. And now here he is, same coat, same voice, telling you to keep 2,000 people asleep under a wall he has known was cracked for 6 years, for the exact same reason he made me lie about it in the first place. Because the season's starting. Because we don't fit the postcard. Silas took a step toward him. It's the same night, Weller. It's been the same night for 6 years. You just keep making other people stand in it for you. Fisk recovered fast. Men like Fisk always recover fast. This is a disgraced inspector, Fisk said to Cole, who lost his license for certifying a bad dam, trying to rewrite his own failure by starting a panic. He signed the report. His name is on the wall. If this dam is flawed, Sheriff, he is the reason, not me. Are you really going to evacuate my town on the word of the one man legally responsible for the thing he says is dangerous? And it was a good move, because it was true. And truth in the mouth of a man like Fisk is the most dangerous thing there is. Silas felt it land. He felt the old fear come up through him, the same fear that had put the pen in his hand 6 years ago. The fear that said, he's right, you're the liar, sit down. Who are you to say anything? And for one terrible moment, in the control room, with the dam groaning behind the wall, Silas Brandt started to sit down. Mr. Brandt! It was a small voice from the doorway. Nell stood there, soaked, with Rowan beside her, because the low blue house below the spillway had started taking water in the yard, and she had kept her promise. She had gone up to the one lit building on the hill, and she had heard the last part through the door. You told my boy to keep to high ground tonight, Nell said. Hours ago, before any alarm, before any of this. You already knew. She looked at Fisk, and then at Silas, and her voice did not shake. This man's telling you what you are. A liar, a coward, whatever word he's using. And maybe some of it's even true. I don't know you. But I know one thing he doesn't. A few hours ago, in a diner, with nothing to gain, you looked at a stranger's kid, and you told him to get up high tonight because you couldn't stand the thought of him drowning. That's not a liar. That's not a coward. She stepped inside. So whatever he needs you to sit down and be, don't. Be the man who warned my son. That man's still in there. I met him tonight. He signed the report, Fisk said. He is legally. I don't care what he signed 6 years ago. Nell did not even look at Fisk. I care what he said 6 hours ago. Mr. Brandt, look at my boy. Silas Brandt looked at the boy. Rowan looked back at him, 9 years old and soaking wet and unafraid, the way children are unafraid of the people who have told them the truth. And Silas Brandt did not sit down. Sheriff, Silas said, and his voice had changed, had found the floor under it. I am the reason. He's right about that. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend he isn't. 6 years ago, I had one job, the only job that ever mattered, to stand between these people and this water. And I signed it away because he frightened me. 2,000 people have been sleeping under my signature for 6 years, and not one of them knew it. I will carry that into whatever comes after tonight. A courtroom, a cell. I don't care. But right now, at this exact minute, I am also the only man in this valley who knows how to keep it from happening, and those two things are both true at the same time. And you are going to have to hold them both in your two hands, because the water is not going to wait for you to decide which one I am. A man can't be both, Fisk said. He's the villain of this story, Sheriff, by his own confession. A man can be both, Silas said quietly. That's the whole thing nobody tells you. You can be the reason it's broken, and the only one who can fix it. I've been both for 6 years. Tonight I finally get to be the second one out loud. He looked at Cole. Your move, Sheriff. Cole Redding looked at the board, at the amber lights, at the brown water on the camera feed, at the drifter he had put out at the county line, standing in a puddle of his own rain, telling him the truth that the richest man in the county was telling him to ignore. Tell me what you need, Cole said. I want a lawyer, Fisk said. You'll get one, Cole said, without looking at him. Sit down and be quiet. Brant, talk. There's only one way to save the dam, Silas said. And you are not going to like it, and there is no version of tonight where everybody's dry in the morning. So listen to all of it before you answer. The pressure inside of that wall is climbing because the lake is too high and the rain is still coming. The joint is piping. If we do nothing, in about 2 hours, the wall goes, all at once, and the whole lake comes down the valley and takes the town off the map. 2,000 people. That's if we do nothing. The only way to stop it is to bring the lake down. Fast. And the only way to do that fast is to open the emergency spillway gate all the way and hold it open. That drops the pressure on the wall. That saves the dam. That saves the town. Then open it, Cole said. Open the gate. Why are we still talking? Because of where the water goes, Silas said. When you open that gate, you send a wall of water down the spillway channel, and the spillway channel runs through the low ground before it reaches the river. The low ground floods. Not the whole town. The low ground, first and fast and deep. How deep? 10 feet, maybe 12, in under half an hour. Silas held Cole's eyes. The blue house below the spillway, the trailer row, the low streets by the marina, everything on Spillway Road. He paused because there was no soft way to say the next part, and a soft way would have been a lie, and he was done with those. Your house, Cole. Your house is on Spillway Road. The corner, the white fence. Silas watched it land. You slowed down when we passed it tonight. In your own truck, driving me out of town, you eased off the gas for half a second at that white fence without even knowing you did it. Because it's home, and a man's foot knows home even when his mind's on something else. It's the low ground. You open that gate to save the town, and you put your own house under 10 feet of water inside 20 minutes, and there is no time to get anything out of it. Not the photographs, not the things that matter, nothing. The control room went very quiet. Cole Redding stood there, and Silas watched him understand it, watched the sheriff arrive at the exact place Silas had lived for 6 years, the place where the right thing and the thing you can bear are not the same thing and never will be. You're telling me, Cole said slowly, that to save 2,000 people, I have to give the order that floods my own street, my own house, with my own mouth. I'm telling you it's your call, and only yours, because you're the law, and I'm a disgraced man with no license and no standing. If I open that gate, it's a crime. If you order it, it's a rescue. Silas's voice was steady and terrible and kind. 6 years ago, a man made me choose between the right thing and everything I loved, and he did it to save a season. And I chose wrong, and I have paid for it every night since. I would not wish that choice on any man alive. But the water doesn't care what I wish, and it's coming either way. So I'm handing it to you, Cole, the same way it was handed to me. Except, I'm handing it to you honest, with the whole price named out loud. Your house for their lives. That's the trade. I'm praying you're a better man than I was. Cole was quiet for a long moment. When you signed, Cole said. 6 years ago. Did anybody tell you the real price out loud? Did anybody stand there and say it plain, the way you just said it to me? No, Silas said. He dressed it up. He made it sound like nothing. That's how he got me. Then that's the difference between you and him. Cole took a breath. You told me plain. Weller Fisk stood up. This is insane, Fisk said. You'll flood the whole lower town on the theory of a man who... Dell, Silas said, not raising his voice. The number 3 piezometer. Read it out loud, right now, for the room. Dell looked at the board. It just went red, Dell said. Number 3 just went into the red. Read the tow drain. Flows doubled in the last 10 minutes. Dell's voice was thin. It's not coffee anymore. It's mud. It's running mud. That's the dam telling you it's almost done talking, Silas said. When it stops talking, it's because it's breaking. Sheriff, the window to open that gate and have it matter is closing. Once the lake tops the emergency line, opening the gate won't drop the pressure fast enough, and then you flood your street for nothing and lose the town anyway. You have about 10 minutes to make a choice that most men don't have to make in a whole life. And Del Pruitt stepped away from the board and stood beside Silas and looked at Fisk. He's the only one in this room who can read these gauges, Del said. I run the panel, and even I can't read them like he does. Stand down, Mr. Fisk. You built the wall. He's the one who can hear it. Cole Redding took his hat off. It was a strange, small gesture, and later Del would remember it as the moment the sheriff stopped being the man who protected the postcard and became something older and harder and better. My wife's at her sister's tonight, up the ridge, Cole said. To no one, to himself. There's nobody in the house. He said it the way a man says the one thing that lets him do the impossible thing. It's just a house. It's just wood. He put his hat back on, and he keyed his radio before he touched anything else. All units, all units. This is Redding. Full evacuation, Spillway Road, and everything below the marina line, right now. This is not a drill. Go door to door. I don't care whose door. Anybody argues, you carry them out, and you call me the second each block is clear. Because I've got a man up here with his hand on a gate, and he doesn't open it until you tell me those streets are empty. He looked at Silas. How long can you give me? Not long. Silas was watching number 3. The window to open that gate and have it matter is closing every second it climbs. You've got minutes, Cole. Not more. Pray your people run. Del Pruitt turned to the panel and put both hands on the gate control and did not pull it, and the 4 of them stood in that room and listened to the radio while a single number climbed. Trailer row clear, the radio said. Number 3 climbed. Marina line clear, moving up Spillway. Number 3 climbed. It touched the top of the red. Come on, Del whispered, both hands shaking on the control. Come on, one more. Spillway Road. A pause on the radio. An eternity of a pause. Rain roaring on the roof. Spillway Road clear, every house. They're all up, go. Now, Silas said. All the way. Don't feather it. A dam like this you commit or you don't. All the way open and hold it and put your eyes on number 3. Now, Del. Del opened the gate. Far below, in the dark, the emergency spillway gate lifted, and the lake found the opening and went through it, and the sound of it reached the control room a second later, a deep, sustained roar that swallowed even the rain. Down on Spillway Road, the water came the way Silas said it would, first and fast and deep, brown and cold across the empty yards of houses whose people were already gone up the hill. It took the sheriff's white fence first, laying it flat. It found his front door and did not knock, and climbed the walls of rooms where a man had lived his whole life, floating the photographs off the shelves, while the man who owned it all stood at a window up the hill and made himself watch, because a man who gives the order does not get to look away from what it costs. And in the control room, 4 people stood around a board and watched a single number. Number 3 piezometer, red, at the very top of the red. It climbed. It held. The roar of the spillway went on, the lake pouring out its dangerous height into the low ground, and the number sat at the top of the red and would not move. The 4 of them stood in a half circle around the board, none of them breathing quite right, watching a single digit decide whether 2,000 people would see the morning. Rain hammered the roof. The camera feed showed the tow drain running full now, a brown torrent in the floodlights. And still the number held at the top of the red, trembling there, at the exact edge between holding and gone, while Silas Brandt closed his eyes and listened. Past the roar, past the rain, to the wall itself. It's changing, he said. The groan, it's changing pitch. Watch the number. Number 3 trembled at the top of the red, and then it fell. 1.25. It came down out of the red and into the amber, and the low, terrible voice of the dam, the voice only Silas could hear, climbed back up out of the depths where breaking lives and became, again, an ordinary groan of concrete doing hard work it could survive. The wall had been asked the worst question there is, and the water pouring out the spillway had, at the last possible minute, given it an answer it could bear. That's it, Silas said, and his voice broke on it. That's the sound of it holding. She's holding. The town's going to be here in the morning. Del Pruitt sat down on the floor of the control room and put his face in his hands. Nell pulled Rowan against her, and Cole Redding stood at the window, looking down at the black water where his street used to be, and said nothing at all. By dawn, the rain had stopped. The lake sat low and brown behind the dam, drawn down 11 feet, safe. The low ground was a shallow lake of its own. The sheriff's house on the corner ruined to the second step of the stairs. No one had died. 2,000 people had slept through the night that nearly ended them and woke up annoyed about the rain. The state came at first light. Dam safety engineers in white trucks, and they took one look at the tow drain and the piezometer logs and Del Pruitt's careful printouts and understood that the young man on the night shift and the drifter beside him had held the whole valley together with about 12 minutes to spare. The lead engineer, a gray woman who had inspected dams for 26 years, walked the abutment with Silas and stopped where the joint had wept its brown line down the concrete. "You called this 6 years ago," she said. "It was not a question. We pulled the original file. You wrote it up as inadequate, in detail, and then 30 days later you signed it adequate. What happened in those 30 days, Mr. Brandt?" "A man happened," Silas said. "He sat across a table and made me more afraid of him than I was of this wall. I'm not proud of it, but the first report's the true one, and last night the wall proved it. That first report probably just saved your freedom." She made a note. "I'll tell you what I see. The only inspector I ever met who got the report wrong and the wall right. The wall doesn't lie, Mr. Brandt. Neither did you, in the end. It just took you 6 years to say it out loud." They had found the first report exactly where Silas told them to look. The one that said the joint was defective, written before he was made to write the second. Fisk had kept it, the way men like Fisk keep things, in case it was ever useful, never dreaming it would be useful against him. Del Pruitt's supervisor arrived at 7, straight from the wedding 2 hours away, still in his good suit, and stood in the control room, looking at the logs his young engineer had kept all night, and did not say a word about panics or tourist weekends. He wrote one line in the shift report before he left. "Night engineer used his own judgment. The valley is still here because of it." Then he shook Del's hand and told him to go home and sleep. Weller Fisk was arrested at his marina at 9 in the morning, in a good coat, still explaining. "This is a disgraced man's word against mine," Fisk was saying, as they walked him past the boats. He signed the report. "His name is on it. You have nothing but the word of a drifter I had removed from town for frightening tourists." "We have your copy of his first report," the state engineer said. "The one you kept in your own files? The one that proves you knew. You didn't keep it to blackmail him, Mr. Fisk. You kept it because men like you can't throw away leverage. And this morning, it's leverage against exactly one person, you." Fisk stopped explaining after that. 2 things came off 2 walls that morning. A state investigator lifted the framed certification off its nail, the one with Silas Brandt's signature at the bottom, and slid it into a clear evidence bag and wrote a case number on the label, and the pale rectangle it left was the cleanest thing in the room. And by noon, a work crew unbolted the tall letters that spelled Fisk from the top of the marina sign, one at a time, and the marina that had carried his name for 6 years carried no name at all by dark. The charge was not the flood. The flood was an act of God with a human signature under it, and lawyers would argue that for years. The charge was the coercion, the second report, the 6-year-old crime that Silas Brandt had finally, on the worst night of the valley's life, stopped being too afraid to name. Cole Redding found Silas at the county line at mid-morning, walking north, duffel over his shoulder, in the thin gray light after the storm. The sheriff pulled the patrol truck onto the shoulder at the same rusted green sign and got out. He did not tell Silas to get in. He just walked up and stood beside him, and the two of them looked north up the road together for a while. "My house is gone," Cole said finally. "Foundation's cracked. They say it comes down." "I know," Silas said. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Cole looked at him. "You gave me the same choice a man once gave you, and I heard you say you chose wrong 6 years ago, and it cost you everything." He was quiet a moment. "I chose right, and it cost me a house. That's the trade you never got offered. You should know it exists, that a man can make that call and lose only wood and shingles, and it's because you stood in that room and told me the whole truth, the ugly part about yourself included. So don't you tell me you're sorry. I put your name in the mud tonight to save your town. You put your own name in the mud. You just let mine stay clean." Cole shook his head slowly. 6 years ago, you were alone in a room with that man and nobody to catch you. Tonight, you made sure I wasn't alone in mine. You think about the difference between those two rooms, Brant, before you decide what kind of man you are. Silas Brant looked at the road north and did not answer because his throat would not let him. Rowan wanted you to have this, Cole said, and held out the laminated card, the state inspector identification, worn soft at the corners. Said you dropped it in the diner and it was yours. Said a man who can hear a damn ought to keep the card that says so. He put it in Silas's hand. The state's reopening your case. The first report turned up, the real one, the one that says you called this joint 6 years ago before anybody made you unsay it. They'll want to talk to you. It won't be quick, and it won't undo 6 years. But there's a road back, if you want it. Doesn't have to be the road north. Why are you doing this? Silas said. I lied about your town. I nearly let it drown. You nearly did, 6 years ago. Cole put his hat back on. Tonight, you're the reason it's still standing. Most men never get a second night to answer for their worst one. You got yours, and you drove back into it instead of north. That's the whole measure of a man, right there. Silas Brant stood at the county line with the card in his hand and the wet valley below him, the drawn-down lake, the standing water, the town that had thrown him out and that he had walked back into anyway. That was still there because he had. A dam tells you before it breaks. Somebody who speaks its language just has to be willing to listen, even after the world has spent 6 years teaching him that speaking costs too much. He looked at the card. He looked at the road north, the easy road, the road he had walked out of a dozen towns. Then he looked back down at the valley, at the one lit window of the control room where a young engineer was still filing the printouts that had saved a town, at the hill where a sheriff's ruined house stood as the price of a right choice, at the low, blue place where a boy was safe because a stranger had told him to get up high. He did not get in the truck, but he did not walk north either. He put the card in his coat, the inside pocket, over his chest, where it had ridden for 6 silent years. And he started walking back down into the valley, toward the water, toward the town, toward whatever the long, slow work of the morning after asked of a man who had finally stopped running from the sound of his own name. Behind him, the dam held the lowered lake, quiet now, its work done, its long night of talking finished. It had told the truth for hours in the only language it had, and for the first time in 6 years, someone who could hear it had been willing, all the way to the end, to listen.